Share screen. Share screen. Okay. And put that down there. Good. I see people are coming back. We got about 3 minutes. And I'm just going to put this up there in case somebody is unable to communicate with me. Perhaps they'll see that. All right, we're up to 5, but I think we had 9 before, so I'll wait about 3 minutes to see if we get back up. All right. About another minute. Good. Back up to 7. All right, so it's 7. I guess we've got back who's coming back. I've taught online before. I've had some students who were suffering and I couldn't tell, like they had no sound or something. So that's why I put this up. If anything is not working, if anything bothers you, feel free to contact me. If you're on now, you can send me a text through Zoom, or you can email me or tweet me. And let me know if anything is not working for you. I just feel a little bit like on ice with these online classes where I can't really see what's going on. But the Kahoots helped me see that I think at least 6 people are, able to hear and see me and apparently succeeding. So let me know if you want anything different. And otherwise, I'll just carry on as planned. So we got another section to go through here. All right. So you have policies, standards, guidelines, and procedures, and you have to know the difference between them all. The policy is the general overarching plan. This is a plan that assigns responsibilities to people, specifies requirements like for audit and compliance. And let me see if I can get this thing out of my way. There we go. And has enforcement and acceptable risk levels. And this is what senior management provides. And And as I was saying, in Equifax, I'm certain this isn't going to work. Are people trying to get through to me? All right, anyway, so this is compulsory. And like I say, in Equifax, the senior management has apparently tried to say that an IT person is responsible for losing the data. And I don't think that's going to work, because they will say, even if an IT person lost the data, it was management's obligation to oversee and monitor the employees. And if they're doing foolish things, to stop them and fire them or replace them or train them. But you can outsource work, but you cannot outsource responsibility. If you take that data and hand it to somebody that does something terrible with it, you're still responsible. You're the one that handed that data to somebody else. So anyway, so you have organizational policies for the whole organization, and then you have specific ones like your network use policy for people on your LAN, and system-specific ones like a firewall policy. You have regulatory policies which meet industry or legal standards that somebody else feeds into you. You have advisory policies, which is the most common one, that just discusses what you should be doing and is not 100% mandatory. And then, of course, there's informative policies that are even weaker than advisory policies. Then there are standards. These are compulsory requirements, things like we are going to use McAfee antivirus, we are going to use Cisco routers, things like that. And these will be documents that specify the decisions made by your company to do things in a certain way. Then there are baselines, which are certain levels of security you have to meet. These are very often provided by government or industry bodies like the National Institute of Standards or the military's TCSEC. So you just have a certain level of security you're expected to have. And if you work with other companies, they often want you to meet a certain recognized standard so they know they can trust you with their data. And then there are guidelines, which can be recommendations on what you want to see people do, but they're not mandatory. And then there are procedures, which are the step-by-step instructions to guide your staff in implementing something like your firewall policy or your antivirus policy or your policy for updates. You have step-by-step instructions to tell people what to do. And now threat modeling is a big part of risk management. And we'll come into this in more detail later, but a threat is not quantified. A threat is just a bad thing that might happen. So if you watch the nightly news, they will tell you there might be poison in your lettuce, there might be burglars in the house, asteroids might hit the earth. These are just things that might happen. Then, to turn them into quantified risks, you have to decide how likely is it to happen and how much harm would it do when it did happen. But a threat is just a list of bad things that could happen. Proactive threat modeling is when you try to figure out what might happen in the future and head it off, so you might design your product in a better way so it'll be more resistant to that threat. This is Microsoft's secure development lifecycle. Is an example of this. They try to consider security at many stages during development, and before a product ships, they have already considered a lot of the risks and prevented them. If you fail with proactive threat modeling, then you're stuck with reactive threat modeling, and this is after you've deployed a product. Now you're going to find vulnerabilities and have things like updates and patches. It is much, much more expensive and less effective to try to patch something after it's been deployed. Obviously, fixing it in production would be a lot better, but you don't really know what the risks are until you put it out in the real world and find out what really happens. Your proactive modeling is, of course, much less certain because you're guessing. So once you're out there, you focus on your assets and you think about what could hurt your assets. Then you try to limit who can get to your assets. You think about your attackers, try to figure out whether you are a target for some reason, and on you go. And you may also focus on your software. That's another way to do it, where you consider the vulnerabilities of your software assets and their threats. Microsoft, there's a whole category of security metrics where you would like to somehow take these threats and decide which threat is more important than others. This would be wonderful if this worked. Right now we are in the infancy of security metrics, so it is sort of more of an art than a science to decide how dangerous a threat is. Microsoft has their STRIDE technique, where spoofing is where you get to imitate somebody else. You can tamper with data. Repudiation lets you deny what you've done. Information disclosure is a certain kind of vulnerability where the attacker doesn't get control of the system, but they learn something that they shouldn't know, which might help them get control later. Then a denial of service vulnerability is one that lets you freeze the system so authorized users can't get work done. And an escalation of privilege vulnerability makes an existing threat worse, because once someone takes over a system, they may not be administrator, but an escalation of privilege will let them increase their rights once they get in. So you can make diagrams of these. You can make diagrams where you find group objects together. So you put a line around your database, then you have a line around your users, then you have these red dotted lines, which are the security boundaries. So you have users and you have your internal resources, and it's the login process whereby the users get into the protected area. So that is a place where you may be penetrated. And now you talk about passing over the security boundaries and what are your controls for who gets to go into this zone and who gets to go into that zone. And this helps you organize your thinking around the various attacks and what controls you have to add. There's also decomposition, another way to look at this. You have data flow paths and trust boundaries, and you try to model all the things that can happen and decide which ones you want to control. You have to somehow prioritize the threats. If you run something like a vulnerability scanner on your network, you will get dozens of red level vulnerabilities, and you now have to look at them carefully, decide which ones of them are really worth the money to fix, which ones of them really don't matter. So there are various ways to do it. The nicest way would be if you can actually somehow boil it down to dollars per year we're going to lose from this. Then it's easier to figure out how many dollars per year to prevent it. But often you can't, and you have to just settle for high, medium, low risk. And there's another model, the DREAD, that again tries to rate them according to what damage various threats will cause. Another issue is risks. One of those news articles I was talking at the beginning was talking about CCleaner, and CCleaner got poisoned through their supply chain. The other software they got from a third party was poisoned, and that can happen. So if you buy things like right now the US government wants military people to stop using Huawei routers from China, because they are worried that there might be hardware Trojans in those routers. So if you buy items without considering their security, you might be poisoning your system in ways you haven't thought about. So it's often better to choose more secure systems in the first place. And that's part of total cost of ownership. This is a big issue. The Linux people often say Linux is better because it's free, but Microsoft says you actually save money by buying Microsoft, because even though you have to pay more for it, it's easier to maintain. And then the Apple people can make the same argument that if you just bought Macs, you'd have to pay even more, but then you wouldn't have to worry so much about updates and antivirus and all that goes into your total cost of ownership. All right. If you have third parties that you deal with, which you almost certainly do, you might, at least you have customers, but you might even be outsourcing part of your company. You might be putting your servers on the Amazon cloud using cloud security solutions like Cloudflare. And if you're going to do that, then you have to analyze their policies and decide if you trust them enough to risk putting your data under their control. Because like I was saying with Equifax, if you hand your data over to Amazon and somebody hacks Amazon and steals it, you're still responsible for having lost that data. You're the one that handed it to somebody else who lost it. And you're responsible for now saying, I did take reasonable efforts to monitor and manage this. And if you didn't, then you're not going to be able to get off the hook by saying, I handed the data to an idiot and they lost it. That doesn't make you blameless. All right. I think that's the end of this. And this is the last Kahoot. So that would be 2A4 right here. Okay. right, good. Back up to 6. And I don't see Richard, so we might even get above 6 here. I'll wait another 10 seconds to see who else might be coming. All right, looks like that's it. 4 questions here. So which one of these gives you step-by-step instructions? Okay, that's a procedure. All right. What's the most common policy? Advisory policies, nobody got it right. Sorry about that, but these are things like best practices and such. They are common, but not really required, but there's a lot of them. All right. What process results in updates? All right, that's good. That's reactive threat modeling. You have sent something out there, and now something has gone wrong, and you have to react to it. All right. What process finds trust boundaries and data flow paths? All right, and that's reduction analysis, not a popular answer, but that's what it is, where you draw these boundaries and watch the data flow in and out of them and consider the risks in that manner. So Jim and Rachel are at the top. All right, well, I think that's enough for tonight. Let me just point out the other things you could do. If you want to watch these slides or look at the slides for future classes, you'll find them all on this page. The video of tonight's lesson will appear right here on the schedule in maybe half an hour. I'll have it up there. The slides are all down here. These have been updated. These are from a previous semester, and they're really probably fine. I just want to take another look at them. I may change a couple of examples, but probably 95% of this is going to stay unchanged. There are online quizzes I recommend, and so you'll find them here in the Canvas. I've got the quizzes up through chapter 3 ready to go, so you can do those. And if anything bothers you, if you have any questions or concerns, let me know somehow, and I'm happy to adapt this to meet your needs. So unless anybody has any questions, I think that's it for tonight, and I'll see you in a week at 6 p.m. California time next Friday. All right. Looks like here comes something. Which school do we sign up for this class? Oh, I think it is a non-credit class, and I think you can only officially sign up through Coastline Community College. And you can only do that if you are an instructor at an NSA-approved college, the Academic Center of Excellence. So you might email me, and I can talk about that. I might mention, I was afraid I wouldn't have enough actual participants in real time, so I told people they could come to the live lecture even without officially enrolling. Yeah, the only assignments I'm giving you is these quizzes. Yeah, that's all. There is no hands-on projects or anything like that, and I do recommend that you make 2 little 5-minute videos explaining a security concept, at least for the people who are teachers here. That would seem like a good thing to practice. But like I say, you're not going to get a grade. You're not really going to get credit. Yeah. That's why I said I recommend that you make 2 5-minute videos explaining a concept of some sort. And I'll put them up and we can see them and talk about them. That might make it a little more interactive. Anything else? All right. Well, I'm going to shut it down in a minute or so. I'll wait another minute or 2 to see if I have any more chat stuff coming in, and then I'll see you in a week. All right, here comes something. Okay, good. KT seems happy. Good. Thank you. Have a good weekend, folks. Okay. Yep. All right. I think I'm shutting it down. Have a good weekend.